Thanks for watching Endgame Economics. If you enjoyed this video, hit subscribe. It's completely free for you, and it helps us continue making more videos like this.
Imagine a country smaller than the state of West Virginia, with a population roughly the size of Minnesota. It's just about 5 million people. Now imagine this tiny country literally outproduces economic giants like Japan, Germany, and South Korea on a per-person basis in one highly complex industry. They build nearly 1 million luxury cars a year. We're talking Porsches, Audis, Range Rovers. You'd normally think a modern European economy would be, diversified into tech or finance, but here it is almost exclusively about the cars. Today, in this explainer, we are breaking down the fascinating story of exactly how Slovakia built the world's biggest car factory per capita.
Okay, let's dive into this. In 2024, nearly 1 million vehicles rolled off assembly lines in Slovakia. That translates to an absolute staggering 182 cars manufactured for every 1,000 citizens. There's no way around it. That number is completely unmatched anywhere else on Earth. It's a record they've quietly held since 2007. It is a massive achievement, but as we'll see today, it is also a massive singular bet.
To understand how this happened and why it's currently at risk, we're going to look at 6 pillars. First, Europe's unlikely Detroit. Then, the EU lifeline, the energy paradox, the demographic bomb, the fiscal trap, and finally, we'll look at the Volvo bet.
So, starting right off with Section 1, Europe's unlikely Detroit, and how it went from a rust belt to an industrial hub. Our timeline really begins back in 1993 with the dissolution of Czechoslovakia. While the split was peaceful, economically, well, for Slovakia, it was incredibly rough. Locals later called it the sandpaper divorce. You see, under communism, the Czech regions got the consumer goods and engineering, while Slovakia was just saddled with heavy industry. Think Soviet-style armaments, aluminum smelters, and steel mills. So by the early 90s, they were basically producing weapons for a war nobody was fighting. But then, in 1998, things took a major pivot. A new government came in and ran a textbook neoliberal playbook at maximum volume. Actually, scratch that, it was extreme reform. By 2004, they introduced a flat 19% tax and secured entry into the EU, which completely culminated in adopting the euro in 2009. The financial press started calling them the Tatra Tiger. But here's the catch. This economic miracle wasn't really built on domestic innovation. It was built almost entirely on foreign car companies.
And this miracle is incredibly concentrated. Take a look at this. Car manufacturing constitutes a massive 54% of Slovakia's entire industrial production, more than half the pie. Right now, 4 foreign automakers operate 4 distinct plants, employing roughly 10% of the country's entire labor force, once you factor in the supply chain. This means the whole nation is structurally just as vulnerable as Detroit was back in 2008. If you were to somehow remove the auto sector, the country wouldn't just face a recession, it would face total economic collapse.
So, how exactly did a small, landlocked country lure in giants like Volkswagen, Kia, Stellantis, and Jaguar Land Rover? Well, they essentially bought the industry. The government offered an absolutely irresistible package. We're talking a flat 19% corporate tax, direct cash subsidies running into the hundreds of millions of euros, free or heavily discounted industrial land, and, crucially, a highly skilled workforce inherited from the communist era that earned roughly 1/3 of what workers in Germany made. It was basically a deal too good for corporate executives to pass up.
Moving on to Section 2, the EU lifeline, focusing on the euro and massive funding. Remember how I mentioned they adopted the euro in 2009? Slovakia was actually the very first post-Soviet country to do so. And why? Because they are an export-oriented economy where 80% of their GDP flows through trade. By adopting the euro, Slovakia voluntarily traded away its ability to devalue its own currency during tough times. But in exchange, they effectively outsourced their monetary credibility to the European Central Bank in Germany. This gave German and other foreign automakers the ultimate stability, literally zero exchange rate risk, along with completely frictionless access to a market of 340 million European consumers.
But this EU lifeline wasn't just about currency, it's about hard cash. 11 billion euros. That is the staggering amount of structural and cohesion funds Slovakia received from the EU between 2004 and 2013 alone. To put that into perspective, this money physically built the highways connecting the car plants. It built the water treatment facilities, the logistics hubs, the whole shebang. Without these billions from Brussels, the Slovak state simply could not have afforded the infrastructure required to make those foreign-owned factories operational.
Which brings us to Section 3, the energy paradox, nuclear versus Russian oil. The paradox here is pretty stark.
On one hand, Slovakia boasts incredible energy independence. They have 5 operational nuclear reactors, producing 60% of their power. That actually makes them a net electricity exporter. But on the flip side, they have a catastrophic vulnerability. They have exactly one significant oil refinery called Slovnaft, and it is physically, mechanically configured to process almost exclusively Russian crude oil, which arrives via a single Soviet-era pipeline. And this paradox recently came to a head, introducing us to a really unique variation of hostage diplomacy. Now, usually this term means a smaller power uses its dependency as leverage. But here, when Ukraine opted not to renew the transit contract for Russian gas, which Slovakia heavily relied upon for cheap energy and hundreds of millions in transit fees, the Slovak government found itself backed into a corner by a dependency it completely failed to modernize its way out of. Faced with this energy crisis, Prime Minister Robert Fico's government engaged in a series of retaliatory actions. As you can see, Slovakia targeted Ukraine by threatening to halt emergency electricity supplies and reducing aid for Ukrainian refugees. Furthermore, Slovakia used its veto power within the European Union to block the 20th sanctions package against Russia. By leveraging its EU and NATO status to protect Russian energy flows, Slovakia has effectively spent down crucial political capital with Brussels at the exact moment it needs EU funds the most.
All right, let's look at Section 4, the demographic time bomb, the internal rot.
You know, economists love euphemisms, and high human capital mobility is a perfect example. What this phrase actually describes is a brutal reality, a massive brain drain. Nearly 1 in 10 Slovaks now lives abroad. The best and brightest students, facing low domestic wages, are fleeing, primarily heading over to the Czech Republic, to cities like Prague and Brno, for better pay and better opportunities.
So the absolutely crucial point here is this number, 2.8 million euros. Research suggests that is the estimated lifetime economic loss for every single university-educated individual who leaves the country. It's devastating. When your most ambitious young people leave, you are left with a shrinking, aging population that naturally demands more healthcare and pensions, all supported by a rapidly shrinking tax base. The factories are already feeling it. They're increasingly having to bus in foreign workers from Ukraine and Serbia just to keep the assembly lines moving.
Now, let's dive into Section 5, the fiscal trap, spiraling deficits.
All of this builds into what credit analysts call the consolidation trap, and this brilliantly illustrates how it works. It's a vicious cycle. Step 1, the government raises taxes to try and close a massive 5% deficit. Step 2, because taxes are higher, people spend less and companies invest less, so economic growth inevitably slows down. Step 3, due to that slower growth, the new tax revenues fall way below initial projections, which leads us to Step 4. The deficit still isn't fixed, so the government has to announce yet another round of tax hikes.
To try and plug this hole, the current government has implemented severe austerity measures totaling over 6 billion euros. And crucially, 80% of this consolidation comes directly from revenue increases, not spending cuts. Standard VAT is up to 23%. Corporate income tax is raised to 24%, making it the highest in their region. They've even added a new domestic financial transaction tax and raised health and social contributions. These massive tax hikes land squarely on the foreign-owned automakers, literally the exact companies whose future investments Slovakia desperately needs to survive.
Which leads us to our final part, Section 6, the Volvo bet, one final roll. Despite all these converging crises, the government is making one final massive roll of the dice. Over in eastern Slovakia, a brand new 1.2 billion euro Volvo plant is currently under construction. It is entirely dedicated to electric vehicles and is set to open in 2026. This plant is a desperate bet to bring high-skilled jobs to a struggling region, transition the country away from dying combustion engines, and somehow prove that the Slovak production model still works. But the precariousness of this bet is honestly terrifying, and it's perfectly illustrated by this number: 25%. That is the U.S. tariff rate recently imposed on imported automobiles. Because Slovakia is so hyper-specialized, over 80% of their gross goods exports to the United States are cars. Suddenly, those luxury SUVs they produce are going to cost an additional $15,000 to $30,000 sitting at the U.S. dock. It shows exactly what happens when your entire economy is concentrated into a single product, and the global winds shift. We've seen how Slovakia built a complete manufacturing miracle, but they built it on foreign capital, EU subsidies, and Russian energy. Now, you might be thinking, tariffs can be renegotiated, pipelines can be rerouted, heck, even deficits can be managed. But I want to leave you with this provocative thought. Can a nation survive when its most ambitious citizens leave?
Demographic collapse might just be the one crisis a country simply cannot engineer its way out of. Thank you for joining me on this explainer, and I hope this deep dive helps you understand the fascinating, fragile reality of Europe's Detroit.